Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sydney Gary. I'm the Conference and Communications Coordinator with the Natural Start Alliance. And today we are welcoming a very special guest based in Seattle, Washington, Hannah Gallagher, who works with the wonderful Seattle PlayGarden. If you haven't heard of the Seattle PlayGarden, you really ought to look them up because they do incredible work in inclusive nature-based learning, particularly with children with disabilities. Okay, so we know that most programs want to include children and disabilities, but they aren't always sure how. There's a lot of elements of nature-based education that make educators and administrators think about what children need to be able to do. They need to be able to follow directions. They need to be able to use the bathroom independently or walk on uneven terrain, and so on and so on. Well, unfortunately, educators and administrators aren't always so sure or confident of how to accommodate children who can't do these things. So children with special needs run the risk of being denied or excluded from nature experiences. And this scenario goes for professionals working in nature-based settings, but also even for families who want to have nature experiences with their children. So Natural Start is always looking for ways to help our community build our skills in accommodating people with disabilities so that we can say yes to children and adults with disabilities. So we're very happy to welcome Hannah Gallagher, who is the Inclusive Program Director at Seattle PlayGarden, which is a national leader in providing inclusive nature experiences for children and adults. They have wonderful resources that are available for everyone, and Hannah's going to help us understand how we can use them to transform programming to be more accessible. So I will pass things off to Hannah. Let me stop my screen share, and Hannah, you can take it away.
All right. Well, good morning. Well, I guess it's morning for me over on the West Coast. But welcome everybody. I'm so excited to be sharing and presenting with you today. Sydney, thank you for the lovely introduction and context for this work. So we're here for an hour to really dive into some of the things that I love most. So I'll introduce myself a little bit more. My name is Hannah Gallagher. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a Seattleite for my whole life. And I've been working with children and youth and adults with and without disabilities for 20 years at the Seattle PlayGarden. And so it is all very, very near and dear to my heart, and something that I'm so excited to share with you, of that intersection of children and community and nature-based kind of hands-on learning. So you can learn more about me kind of on our website, but yeah, that's a little bit about me. So together in this next 45 minutes, my goals really are just to have a rich conversation about nature-based inclusive programming and how to create spaces of belonging, accessibility, and inclusion. Assuming that many of you are in early childhood education, though from the chat, I could see that you're across many, 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 many different youth care organizations, which is incredible. So today's conversation will focus a bit more in early childhood education, though everything I share is applicable to older children, teens and adolescents, and into adult inclusion as well. But I'll share some inclusive teaching techniques with you that we use at the PlayGarden, and then kind of finish by sharing some additional resources for you all to continue to learn more. Yeah, and my goal is really just that at the end of this, that you feel empowered, excited, joyful, with a few more stories and ideas about how to say yes to children and youth with disabilities in any kind of programming that you're offering to the community. Or if you're a parent, how do you say yes kind of within your birthday parties that you're hosting for your children, or after school play dates, or supporting your church group, or in any way that looks. I'm going to hit something in the chat, which is just a few links. You don't have to open them all right now, but they're there for you as a resource. And the best way, yeah, so really just hoping to open your hearts and minds, and with a lot of excitement around around this topic. And to do that, I'm going to share a video which we learned was best done um, in YouTube instead of my Google Slides.
You can have so much fun just playing and snuggling the animals, planting in the garden, playing, running in the wild zone. My favorite activity is going up down to the wild zone and playing down there on hot days. Me too. The reason why I came is because I saw Jake doing it and I thought it looked really fun because there's like bunnies and ducks and chickens. And then there's the water feature. Yeah, and then there's the water feature. I'm like, oh gosh, I wish I could do that. Oh, and an old pickup truck. Oh yes, the pickup truck that you can go inside. And Jake, why did you start going? Because I just thought it would be fun. It's so fun. I really like to play in the water with Ellie and draw and make crafts and play in the garden. I've learned how to um cook stuff and plant stuff and how to make new friends.
What's been always been really special about it was how I could come here with my sister and just kind of do things that other kids could do with their siblings, but it was always harder to do that kind of thing with Violet. So I could come here and, I could pick flowers with her. I could play in a water feature, play musical instruments with her, all the kind of things that I would do if I had a typical little sister. I can do all those things here. It's been nice. I've never played in a pool with Violet, but there's an amazing water feature here where I can actually do the same thing.
We can be together and we can do whatever we want, kind of like Connor was saying before. We can pick flowers, we can paint, we can go on the swing, we can go through the garden, we can meet people and just see that we weren't really alone in the situation and that we could still have fun.
It really is an eye opener when you come to PlayGarden. Sometimes it's like there's a lot of kids out there that have trouble, playing with other kids, and it's a good place for that. It's a good place to play with just everybody.
It's really fun because we get to meet new friends and we get to be friends. Yeah. We both really like the playground, right, Ellie? Yeah. We sure do. We have a lot of fun. I think, Cleo, do you have fun at PlayGarden? Yeah.
Well, I I love seeing the hearts coming in from somebody. It's a little different for me not seeing your faces. So is there anything that stood out to you in the video? Some things that people often kind of respond to that is a really wide age range of our programs, and that's really intentional so that siblings can come together. And that video was filmed years ago in our summer camp program, but I continue to use it over and over again because I love kind of hearing directly from the kids themselves. So I see you all sharing now. So many smiles in the chat about that video. So just for some context, the PlayGarden, as it sounds, Seattle PlayGarden is in Seattle. It's in the heart of Seattle, right in the city, about 1.5 miles from downtown. It's a 1-acre property, and we're a very unique public-private partnership. We lease the land from Seattle Parks and Recreation on a 10-year renewable lease, essentially rent-free in exchange for the inclusive programming we provide back to the community. I am here today on the shoulders and love and hard work of many, many other amazing people, starting with my grandmother, Lou Ann Bullard, who, I apologize for the, oops. Dang, my tech is having a hard time with me today. She was a naturalist and a special education teacher, who really, I think, probably set the roots, planted the seeds for my mother, Liz Bullard, to come up with the idea of the PlayGarden. So Liz had worked as a speech pathologist, working birth to 3 with families and really seeing kids go from therapy to doctor to therapy to doctor, and almost always, you know, therapy, we believe in it, we support it, and it's work for children, right? You said 1 word in speech, now say 2. You did this in PT, now do more. And so she really wanted to create a space where everyone could come and play and really just truly be kids, at heart. So I've also learned a lot of what I know from Jenny Gamache, who is our founding camp director, and really influential in Seattle schools. So I carry them and the thousands of families of children I work with through this session. And so in the video, you heard from some of those siblings kind of say, you know, we can look around and see that we're not really alone in this situation. So when I talk about inclusion, creating programs, spaces of inclusion, I like this definition. Inclusion includes an authentic and empowered participation and a true sense of belonging. Inclusion is both a philosophy, so why do we do it, and a practice, how do we do it? It's the fundamental philosophy that diversity is an asset to all and that all children benefit when we remove barriers to learning. And I'll dive into the practice of how we do it in the slides ahead. You're going to hear me say we support children or youth or adults with disabilities a lot in the next little while. And first of all, I should clarify that I'm using what's called people first language. So a child with Down syndrome or a child with autism, children with disabilities. And that is one way that people with disabilities like to be referred to. And there's also what is known as identity first language. So I am an autistic person. I am part of the hard of hearing community. And both are absolutely appropriate. And you're never really going to know how a child or an individual likes to be talk about their disability without listening and learning from them. But more than anything, get to know the individual person and using respectful language when you can. But when I talk about serving children with disabilities, I'm talking about all types of disabilities, including physical disabilities, intellectual disabilities, invisible disabilities, maybe like ADHD or anxiety. You can see here in this slide, this was from a summer camp survey I did to my summer camp families asking if they were comfortable to identify type of disability. You can see it will never add up to 100% because there are so many different intersecting types of disabilities. And I bring this up because often when we think about disability, we are trained in our society to think a little bit more in physical disability through our parking signs, through curb cuts. And I want this conversation to be about a broader topic. So why is this important? And why do we need to be having this conversation right now? Unfortunately, disability stigma and inclusion or exclusion still is very prevalent in the community. In that same survey, I asked my camp families, has your family faced barriers to inclusion when attending other summer camps? You can see in this graphic that 72.9, 73% said yes, they have experienced barriers. And yet that other, 28% or so isn't exactly no, it's we haven't even tried other programs. We're not sure other programs will work for us. This can happen for kind of specific types of barriers, like explicit barriers, like a program requiring a child be toilet trained in order to participate. That can be a really big barrier for many families. It can also be kind of coming from some attitudinal barriers that a family might face. Here is a Instagram kind of cartoon drawing. You can see a little girl maybe is playing in the sand, maybe dreaming of a castle. Maybe she's flapping her hands and might be dreaming of outer space, flapping her hands on the ground, and who knows, maybe she's dreaming of birds. and there are two adults talking above her. And one says, "How sad that she doesn't know how to play appropriately." The other person might say, "How sad that you lack the imagination to see beyond your own perspective." And this is put out by a parent with autism who has a child with autism, in trying to broaden kind of this conversation. But this idea that families are facing not only kind of explicit barriers within organizations, but attitudinal barriers when they go to play in the park or visit their local community center. And then it also can kind of barriers come from ableist assumptions and kind of microaggressions and teacher perception. So for those of you that are educators, that can look like maybe a child is running around at your circle time and they won't sit still and they can't kind of join the group the way maybe some of the other kids can. And it's kind of seen as quote unquote, maybe like a bad behavior, when in fact, really trying to shift our lens to thinking about disability inclusion and what does that look like? What does it feel like to be this child? And they're doing their best in trying to participate, and participation or play will look very different for them than it does for another child. There is a letter written by children with disabilities called the Dear Everybody letter. I put the link in the chat, but I will share it with you at the end. And I love this letter because, again, like I said, it's written by children with disabilities, and they really call out many of those microaggressions that happen on a day-to-day basis. And then how do we as parents, as educators, as community members hear those and make a shift? So some of these lines that often apply in early childhood education: sometimes concentrating looks like fidgeting, or overstimulation can look like bad behavior. It's very different. Children with disabilities ages 3 to 5 and or emotional and social challenges, while comprising just 12% of early childhood programs, represent 75% of suspensions and expulsions. And I want that to sink in for a minute. That's pretty. I see a hand here, Valerie. I'm gonna keep going and we'll ask you a question. If you can put your question in the chat, that would be great. That's a really, really heartbreaking statistic, right? And it's hard for me to look with this photo of two of my current preschoolers, Gusto and Eva, and there's a lot of behaviors that would maybe send one of these children out of a school setting or be sent home for. And what does that do for his identity, for his sense of self-esteem, for his confidence, and for the family's confidence? So I'm going to read, this is from kind of in connection to that. I want you to hear this parent testimonial. So it's called A Home for a Hummingbird, and this was shared on a parent's Facebook page back in October. Some of you know the challenges we've had the last few months trying to find a preschool for Charlotte. Throughout this journey, we've been struggling to find a good fit for her, and while some experiences have been good, despite the outcome, some have been not so good. And the overall sentiment we have been left with is that Charlotte was just too much for their staff and schools. It is heartbreaking to watch your daughter, who loves school so much and gives her full love and affection to every teacher and caregiver, be turned away time and time again. Because one message I don't ever want her receiving directly or implied is to be less. I'm so happy to say that we have found her home in the Seattle PlayGarden. A few days after one of our more abrupt and hurtful rejections, I received an email saying that a spot had opened for Charlotte at PlayGarden, if we were interested in taking it. We'd been on the wait list for a few months, and it felt so serendipitous, I could have cried. We are 3 weeks in, and it has truly been the most healing experience. The first week of school, one of the teachers described Charlotte as a hummingbird at a feeder. Lots of energy, always darting in and out, but wanting to be engaged and coming back to the group to take a drink. It is such a simple analogy, but the perfect one for our girl. to have her personality framed in such a simple and matter-of-fact way without any hint of exasperation. Oh, geez. It is such a simple analogy, but the perfect one for our girl. To have her personality framed in such a simple and matter-of-fact way without any hint of exasperation or impatience. Like, of course she flits about to and fro. She's a hummingbird. Hummingbirds flit and ducks waddle, and that's how it is. You wouldn't expect a duck to be a hummingbird, and you shouldn't expect a hummingbird to be a duck. So here are some photos of our vivacious, joyful Charlotte, thriving in this new and accepting environment, and being appreciated for the beautiful hummingbird that she is. Thank you, PlayGarden, for being a sanctuary to all types of special little birds. So here you hear that heartbreak in the family of being turned away simply because their child is a little busy bee, a little hummingbird, right? And so my invitation to you is, how do you say yes to families? How do you make sure that, many programs feel that they don't have the experience or the staff or don't have the right kind of training or the equipment to say yes to kids with disabilities. And I'm here to tell you that you absolutely do have what it takes, because you can start one family at a time, learn from that family, and build from there. I'm not here to talk about the benefits of inclusion, though there are many, because I'd like to believe we're beyond having to describe what is a right for all child. The United Nations Conventions on the Rights of a Child formally enshrines the child's right to play and the right to engage in other recreational activities, including participation in cultural activities and the arts. I'm going to pause for a second and look at the chat here. Maria, I see your question. Maria is asking about, are there regulations for, keeping this exclusion from happening? Yes, the Americans with Disabilities Act does protect children from kind of direct exclusionary practices. And yet families face it all the time, where I had a coworker who has a son with autism want to sign up for a cooking class. And she said, hi, I want to sign my 2 kids up. My daughter is 7, my son is 10. And by the way, my 10-year-old has autism. And the program said on the phone, I'm sorry, we don't have the staff to support your child. Are they allowed to say that? No, they really have a right to serve every single child, or an obligation to serve every child. And yet, what does that parent feel on that phone call is like defeat, right? And she could argue that. And yet, more often than not, parents are kind of like, well, if you're not going to work with me, then is this really a place I feel safe sending my child? Had that person on the phone taken some time to learn about the family, say, I'm not sure I know much about autism. Can you tell me about your child? They would learn that the child is the son of a professional chef and actually would have done great in the cooking class, but needed some timers or to help him transition through the time there. This slide here is what the PlayGarden looked like when we started. So I want to say that for those of you in nature-based programming, often thinking, well, how can we serve more children with disabilities? We're on the beach, we're on bumpy trails, we're in a big forested property. I'm here to tell you that you can make any space work for children. We started with some straw bales and a porta potty and a picket fence, and families still dropped their kids off to play with us. And over the last 20 years, this is kind of where we have been able to build the PlayGarden. But we didn't start here, and most organizations aren't going to start with it being fully accessible. So let's dive into our preschool program. Kind of give you some more concrete actions of what does this inclusion look like in practice. So our preschool program as you can see, we run other programs too: summer camp, free play, young adult programming, wheelchair basketball programming. And all of our programs hold very similar facets, which are that they're nature-based, play-based, child-directed, and multi-age. And so in our preschool program, we have 50 to 60% of our kids have some type of disability. We have 15 kids per day with a lead teacher and 2 to 3 teachers' assistants. The garden is our classroom. We use the seasons to really dictate what are we doing in the garden, and Bill, are we looking at frozen soil, digging in the winter, trying to crack through frozen soil in the winter, or are we rebuilding our worm bin, or making compost stew as the spring hits? I'll share this book at the end, but this book is our preschool curriculum, and you can find it on our website for free to download, or you can purchase a hard copy. But it goes month by month through our curriculum of what are we cooking? What are we cooking with the kids? What art projects? What things are we doing with the animal care at that time of year? Songs we sing, books we read each season. So if you're looking for nature-based curriculum, you can find that here. And each chapter has a special focus on inclusion. So how are we providing the balance between structured play and unstructured play? Or how are we thinking about creating art experiences that are accessible to everyone? So I highly recommend downloading this book or purchasing a copy, and we'll mail it to you. And that will really give a much deeper dive than what I'm about to share moving into our preschool program. We do a lot of heavy lifting and hard work, which is great for all kids, but especially some of our kids that need some more of that deep kind of sensory input. Having heavy lifting, having jobs is always a great addition to our preschool program. And really kind of one of the key facets that actually maybe makes us relatively different than some other programs, not just, is that we're very play-based and very child-directed. And so what does that look like? It looks like kids deep in imaginative play, risky play, creative play, and through that play, the kids are really learning how to interact with each other. These are short, like 10-second little clips, so if you can't hear them super well, it's okay. You can still kind of watch the visuals.
I saw.
And let's see. So you can see there that the kids are really choosing their play, and through their play, they're practicing their social emotional skills, they're building communication skills, they're motivated. We see huge, phenomenal growth in speech and language development while kids are playing. We had a child who was 3 when she began starting with us with autism, and was non-speaking when she started, and now is about to graduate off to kindergarten and has a huge amount of language to access. And a large part of that is she's very, very, very motivated in her social interactions, in her communication. And you can see, our little kids ice skating over on the side. That could be perceived as like, okay, we did the painting on the cardboard, time to clean it up and move along. And yet the kids kind of took it one step forward and it started to rain on those cardboard pieces, and they start ice skating on it, and it was a huge mess. And yet it became this amazing, both sensory and joyful experience for them. So Patty, I see your comment there. Do we keep sensory kits available? And what are some of the items we keep in them? We do a lot of sensory play that can look like making rainbow rice bins, shaving cream art, pouring liquid watercolors and splashing and playing in liquid watercolors, baking soda vinegar play, but really even just the whole garden is a sensory experience for them. So feeling the rain, feeling the snow, feeling the wind. And the most beautiful thing about teaching in both an inclusive program that's nature-based and a program that is kind of disability centric is there is something really for every child. And so, let's see, there's something for every child. And I was hoping that there's a slide of two brothers next to each other, because I have two brothers currently at school, Walter and Jacob. And Jacob can lay in the sand or lay in the grass and look for worms quietly for 45 minutes. His brother, on the other hand, needs to like run and move and dump and pour and shovel through this space. And so providing a program that has choice provides an opportunity for both of those boys to find what do they need in that moment that is going to help them feel grounded, excited, engaged in their learning and in their growth. I like this quote from Mary Oliver. But really, how do we create that whimsical, wonderful spirit for children? And we do that through giving a lot of agency. And that's what I mean about children having choice. Choice in their day. And Stephanie, I see your question about paid or staff. So all of our program staff are paid, and we take a lot of pride in the fact that we have we're able to hire staff to create jobs both for adults and young adults and youth with and without disabilities, work in all of our programs and serve on our board of directors. And that's a huge part of creating our overall inclusive culture. You know, when we started preschool, we started summer camp in 2005 and then started running preschool in 2010. And, you know, kind of early on, we're really serving children. And over our 20-year trajectory of an organization, we now have a young adult program for adults with disabilities. We have a supported employment program that we hire adults with disabilities to work in all of our programs year round. And really kind of are thinking about inclusion across the whole organization and what representation does that provide back to families. And one of the biggest ways that we create an inclusive organization is really creating what we call a thinking organization. And we embrace a very reflective practice. We don't consider ourselves experts when we meet kids. And honestly, kids change month by month, season to season, year by year. And so inclusion is never done. We are constantly thinking about the children and the youth that we're serving and what can we adjust in our teaching practice to better serve those families. So here's a few tips. I'm going to go through 8 tips. Get to know one child at a time. So for example, this is a child, River, who would likely be denied access from many nature-based programs. She needs bathroom assistance. She needs full physical assistance, though now she's older and she's strong playing wheelchair basketball and can absolutely wheel her own chair. But the beauty is that there's so many ways that having her at school is she's the light of the world, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So I would say, for example, you can see here, we got her out of her chair to make cookies with her teacher, Jean. She wheeled herself up to have a hug with her teachers and coworkers. And with the easels, had I set those papers up on the wall, would she have been able to access them? Probably not, right? Her wheelchair would hit and she couldn't reach. So thinking of things like the easels that all the kids love and she can access gives her a way to participate. Similarly, what if I had River still in her wheelchair in this sensory rice bin? Could she participate with her peers? Probably not, right? She'd be up here and the rice would be down here. So making sure that we have a few support things, and this one foam chair is one item we have. But if I didn't have the foam chair, I could use a book basket or my own body to support her so that she could participate with her peers. As for I see your question, Kylie. I'll get to it in a second, but getting to know one child at a time. This is another child, Salma, who would often also be denied access because she has pretty frequent seizures. She has cerebral palsy and muscle weakness along the left side of her body. She falls a lot. It's just a little bit concerning in a big, kind of fast-paced, nature-based program. However, she falls, she gets back up. She falls, she gets back up. Kids are resilient and tough, and they learn to navigate the world in their body. And she's going to navigate. She'll turn right here so that she can access the coloring. She's going to, and the way we worked with her family was, how can we keep Selma safe while at school? And we were like, well, her seizures are really happening in those first 15 minutes of school. So in those 15 minutes, I have a teacher closer by, and maybe we don't play on the cement and we play on some of the softer surfaces. This little boy, Jacob, he is obsessed with animals, and he also has autism and can get kind of in a rigid pattern of thinking. He might come in and say, I want dinosaurs, I want dinosaurs, I want dinosaurs, I want dinosaurs. And you're like, okay, but we're doing the bee project today. He's like, I want dinosaurs, I want dinosaurs. So as a teacher, you have a choice. Do you try and get him into the project that you're doing with the other kids? Or can you be a little bit flexible and lean in, okay, sure, we can do some dinosaurs, but let's go do it over at the art table with the other kids. So that way he has an access point of something that he really loves. He's engaged in his learning, and through that then gets to bring other kids into his play and his world. That doesn't mean that I'm not trying to introduce new opportunities for him to engage at school, but it means that I'm following the child's special interests and the things that he loves as a way to build a relationship with him, trust with him, engagement with him, and then through that, I'm able to help him build his relationship with his peers. For many of our children with autism, not entirely, this can also be for our kids with sensory processing disorder that maybe get overwhelmed in a group experience. They may not feel very comfortable joining in and say a circle time experience. It might be too loud or too chaotic or too unpredictable for them. So things that we do is, for example, this child, Leo, he needed time in the morning to have his morning little loop. And when he was given time and space to roam and to center in himself throughout the day, he then could tap more and more into those group experiences. We use parents and caregivers as our allies. They want you to be successful. They're going to send you information to be successful. For example, these are about me sheets that families may send with a child to help you be successful. We create kind of a supportive drop-off experience for families. So that could look like something like providing a picture schedule, or I might make a really simple dry erase board where it says, Jacob's plan, and I might draw it out. First we're going to see the chickens. That's a really goofy looking chicken. We're going to see the chicken. Then we're going to eat some snack. Then we're going to do this, and we're checking things off throughout the day. I apologize for that messy handwriting. But we're really trying to think about how can we create a sense of comfort and support for the children that we're serving. And if that gives them a little bit more control in the day, another thing could be such as like a picture schedule like this, where we're checking things off throughout the day. Did we do drop up with dad? Yes. Did we do circle time? Yes. Did we do snack? Yes. What are we on to next? We're on to, our free play choices. And just providing that amount of guidance in the day gives a lot of ease to many of the kids that we're serving. And these are very easy to make. You could hand draw them. You can make some laminated ones and dry erase. That's why I love these magnetic dry erase boards. The other thing that is, and I'm aware of time, so I'm going to talk fast for a few minutes and then we'll get to our questions. Avoid thinking of medical-like things as medical. For example, a G-tube feeding. Programs might say, oh, I'm sorry, we can't do that. We don't really have the staff. We don't really know how to do that. It's not complicated. The parent is going to teach you exactly what you need to know to support that child. And in this case, a child might come up and say, what's that thing in Jack's stomach? And you're like, oh, you're curious about Jack. Jack, do you want to tell them about your feeding tube? And so that he has agency. He's talking for himself. I'm not talking for him. If he is non-speaking, I would still ask him that question and then say, Jack, can I tell them about your feeding tube? And you would say something very honest and direct. Kids need a clear, honest answer. This is Jack's feeding tube. He has a hard time chewing food, so it goes straight to his stomach. And you chew through your throat, and his goes right to his stomach. And the kids are like, cool. So really kind of demystifying disability, because what happens had you said, oh no, we don't talk about that. You know, that's Jack's thing. It causes it to feel more taboo versus just part of Jack's body. More medical complex children are going to come with a nurse that will be able to, or a parent or a caregiver who will be responsible for supporting that. So you won't be left in a situation with medical type equipment that you are unprepared to support. Avoid thinking of children with disabilities as fragile. They're not. They want to be rough and tumble and in the mix of everything, just like everybody else. Center the child with a disability. So this is a little loud, very short video. So it might be a little hard to figure out what's going on in that video, but this is Liam with the red hair and the orange chair. And the day before we had done trains, and I poured the trains on the floor. And then all of the kids, what do? They swarm to the floor and they start pulling their trains. And I'm like, dang, now I'm trying to fit Liam into the experience. I'm thinking of him after in his physical support. Embracing a reflective thinking organization, we debriefed with our team and I was like, that felt kind of crappy. How can we do better tomorrow? So the next day I said, Liam, do you want to play trains? He's like, yes. And I'm like, can I get you set up first? And he's like, yes. So I got him set up. I centered him and then poured the trains on top of him. And then what happens? All the kids and come and play around him. So he's right there in it real time with his peers. And this could be, and I saw some of you from the Arkansas Zoo, or, you're modeling the iguana, and you see somebody that maybe has a harder time accessing the front row to see that, go over to them and start there. Start with the child that needs a little bit more guidance, whether that's a child that wants to do the art project but gets overwhelmed when it's crowded. So, hey, Jacob, I'm going to set you up over here. You're going to have your special art zone, and then I'm going to get the rest of the kids going nearby. That doesn't mean I'm excluding him from the group. It means I'm thinking about, what does this child, the children who maybe need the most, how can I get them set up for success? And then the rest of the group, I can bring them into that experience. So I'm aware of time. So I'm gonna pause us here and say that there are so many fun ways to include children with disabilities, and there are so many tools that you, especially as environmental educators, you're used to being flexible, you're used to working on the fly, thinking about adaptations for an experience, that you absolutely have the tools to do this, and you can always reach out to the PlayGarden to learn more about inclusion and the PlayGarden, and access our online learning hub that will provide you here. I'll actually show you that, and then you all can start thinking of your questions.
Somebody asked about how you navigate having kids that need bathroom assistance and what kind of safeties y'all have in place.
Yeah, definitely. This is our, I'm going to answer that question, but I just want to show you that if you go to our website and you hit the tab Learn, you can access both our toolkit to purchase, or the preschool book to free download or purchase. And you can also access this place called Lessons. And this is a big resource of a lot of what I've talked about, broken down into more easy to digest 10-minute or so lessons. Like, for example, the power of repeat after me songs, and why are they so valuable in, multi-age, inclusive, nature-based programming, and how can they make a difference for the children and for your camp counselors. So this is here for you as a free resource. Let's get to bathrooms. Bathrooms is one of those things that people kind of exaggerate into this big, hard, complicated thing. In my opinion, it's not that hard. You figure out which children need assistance, and you figure out at what point in the day they need that assistance and who's going to provide it. And if that looks like doing a full diaper change, it's a full diaper change. If it looks like a reminder to someone and getting them into the bathroom and, you know, helping them get down their rain gear because the kids are like little stuck penguins in all their gear, or a teenager. For us, that also extends all the way up through children, youth, teens with disabilities as well. I hire, unlike a lot of I lead a lot of inclusion trainings, and I'm shocked every time when I ask if people hire high schoolers and how often people say no. I have an incredible group of high school, college age, post-college age counselors, and I'll interview them and say, do you know how to change a diaper? They say no. I said, great, I'll train you. So it's not as complicated as it sounds. And if you're a small organization, you're like, well, I'm just one teacher and it's me and my 10 kids off in the woods. Then you figure out, okay, every day at 11:30, I need one additional adult. How do I do that? And is that bringing in a volunteer? Is that bringing in your admin for a few minutes to get that change done? So it does take being a little bit flexible and a little bit willing to figure out how to support that child. How does our ratio affect your student body? So we have a really high, you know, staff to camper or staff to preschooler ratio. And that is unlike other organizations. We do that so that families do not have to send an aide or a caregiver with them, because that can be a huge barrier too, right? And really expensive for families if they have to share. Sorry, I undid the screen and now I'm just seeing myself. It's very confusing. So that's a huge way of increasing that staff ratio, takes the responsibility off of parents to provide that caretaker. Of course, that does take more resources to fundraise in order to be able to provide that support. Or you have to think creatively about your staffing. There is a really great story in this book called A Win-Win-Winny Situation that I recommend you reading, and it will answer that question of a very creative way that an organization found a way to provide greater staff assistance without a great expense to the organization. So that's in here. Any organizations across the states that provide the opportunity for people of all ages? Maria, I'm sorry, that's a big question. I'm trying to figure, you know, I would hope that there's more and more organizations. The fact that Natural Start Alliance chose to host the PlayGarden for this webinar shows me that things are changing. People want to learn more. They want to include more youth with disabilities, and they already are serving youth with disabilities and are looking for more resources on how to do that. Obviously, we have to really, really invest in these organizations, both locally and figure out the ways in which our national politics are impacting them, which currently is cuts to Medicaid, will have a huge impact on people with disabilities and the programs that serve them. So I would say do your research in your local area about what programs are out there doing fantastic, cool, awesome work for the community and support them. Any suggestions to help staff who are new to working in inclusive programs and maybe struggling or feeling like it's hard due to high ratios? Yeah, I think that it does take those teachers sharing back their stories with their administrators, with their executive directors, and really sharing kind of the reality of, you know, I really want to support this child and I'm finding that they really need some more, you know, teacher support to be successful. And so for those of you that are in teaching situations where that's hard, using some of those tools like centering the child with a disability, thinking about providing choice, right? If one child can be doing this while a couple children are doing this, and kids have more agency, they're often going to feel more like engaged in the classroom or in the program. That can kind of help with some of the staff ratio stuff, but real inclusion, it does take more staff or volunteers or people to do it and to do it well. And so really getting that buy-in and communicating with the rest of your organization. I really want to serve this community, and we have an obligation to be serving this community, and we need to start, shifting our staffing model to make that more possible. Any other?
Hannah, there was
Yeah.
another question submitted in Q&A, kind of on the same note about they're seeing a trend where programs are requesting for aides and family members are wanting to step into those roles. So they're asking if you have any examples or resources that would help to learn how to screen adults who request to attend as an aide.
Yeah, I think it is hard having like someone new you don't know coming into your program. And obviously it would take energy and resources on your end to train or onboard a new person, right? And so I think that having there has to be, if you're going to have additional adults, whether that's a parent as an aide, a few simple things where, say they come to your program and it's a day program, it's a day-based environmental education program, and you can say, hey, here's the schedule for the day. So even giving them like, here's the schedule, here's a few ways that I'd love for you to be able to step in and support a student, and if you need to take a break, you can. So giving almost that like 3-minute pep talk to that adult about the day gives them some context for how they can and cannot participate with your peers. But that's a pretty, it's complicated depending on the type of program that you're running, and is it, because one of the things that happens for us is if an aide comes, we often see that aide and that child off one-on-one, together. And I'm like, but you signed up for summer camp. You're here to play. So what I actually tell my counselors and those aides is, hey, I'd love if you can step back as much as possible. Are you comfortable with us pushing Lucas's wheelchair? Are you comfortable with us getting him out of the wheelchair? This is what the parents said, they're good with it. If you don't mind, if you can sit back, we'd love to get in there, because that way we get to have the counselors build that relationship that's kid and camp counselor in a really fun, playful way, without trying to crowd the child with an aide and a counselor and all of these other things. So kind of on the other side of it, we actually often ask aides to step back so that we can build those relationships. Knowing that the aide is also there to support the child and they have knowledge and information to share back. Is there anything in particular you've learned supporting this child that would help me right now? So using them as your ally, knowing that they want everyone to be successful, but then setting those clear boundaries of participation. That's for safe, I think that's like, are you going through background checks? Are you making sure that you're communicating with the other families, like, hey, by the way, we're going to have an aide coming in, this is who they are, this is who they're supporting. So it can be more broadly communicated out to your youth program, just so that other people know, who is this person? This person's not the camp counselor, they're not the teacher, they're here to support Ren, they're doing this kind of support. And that way it gives everyone, the parents and the other kids, kind of a context for who that aide is.
We're going to have to cut Q&A short. I'm so sorry. These are all really, really great questions. And Hannah, you're so knowledgeable, so I understand why people are like, Hannah, what about this? Hannah has graciously shared her email address. It's on our website on the webinar page. Hannah, feel free to drop it in the chat here too as well. If you have any other questions, reach out to Hannah. She is a great, great knowledgeable resource. And we're so thankful that she was able to join us today for this webinar. So again, thank you so much, Hannah. I just want to close up things with one final announcement here. Just a reminder that our annual nature-based early learning conference is coming up this summer, July 14th through the 18th. It's entirely online and registration is open. We've got an incredible event planned for you all. The program is awesome, a great lineup of featured speakers and live sessions, workshops, site tours, and all of this content will be available on demand for the next year until July 2026. And we have merch for sale this year. So if you're looking for your next hoodie or t-shirt or crew neck, It's all on our website at conference.naturalstart.org. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we're going to end things there. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Happy spring.